All right, hell yeah. So I'm just going to go over the highlights in about a minute or less. And so we took a inflatable kayak that had two tubes. We took out the floor and then we kind of strapped it to our boat. And so, hell yeah. Once you pass the point of no return, the boat's going to flip over. But this kind of acted as a sponson, and then also it acted as a hip brace, and it wasn't too bad to paddle against. And now this is pretty oversized, but this, for me, this was cool because it showed that you can have a stair step, and the squarer that stair step is, the more, like, it's super solid if you're gonna, lean over onto that. And so, hell yeah. All right, long format video. I just wanted to, it is a brutal day, but we got this. All right, hell yeah. So there has to be some rhyme and reason of why you're doing stuff. And so what we have is an inflatable kayak, and it doesn't have a floor. So this is just two tubes, and this is gonna simulate that 2 point of contact. And my boat is just resting in there. It's not even strapped, and it's fairly stable. Now it might be resting against that dolly, but hell yeah. And there's just some physics that get in the way, you know what I mean? Like, this is gonna be horrible to paddle over, but still it can be integrated into the design. And so this is kind of just taking something to the extreme, and also this being in the water, that's not ideal. It's gonna be too much of an edge. But look at that, the boat is perfectly upright, and what we can do is we can angle it and then maybe strap it at an angle, and then so if it does get to this position, this boat will be over there, and then that can leverage itself back to flat. Hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. So I just have one strap on that, and that thing wants to leverage itself back. So let me put up the tripod just so we can do a dry run to see how easy it tips over. Hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. So again, this is the 2 points of contact. You know what I mean? All right, hell yeah. So it's about 65 degrees, but it's gonna get about 50 in a couple hours. So hell yeah. But we do have thick thermals. These are neoprene, goes a long way. I just have 2 Capoline. We're gonna freeze, but we do have, 3 mil, a little bit less wetsuit, so let's do it. Alright, hell yeah. So I've mentioned this before, but I do have these really thick NRS Expedition socks. They don't make them, but just hella thick neoprene on the feet goes a long way. That and the head, so that's what I'm kind of pointing out. Wool socks, these go over. Extra large shoes, make sure your toes aren't crunched. Winter helmet goes a long way. This is a staple, even in the spring, sometimes even in the summer. Just the NRS skull cap. Here is the skull balaclava. And then here's balaclavas that you get from Costco. This is like 2 for 12 bucks, you know what I mean? They're like $6 or $8 a piece. But even on a day like today, having fleece, kind of provides that extra warmth that I think it accentuates the neoprene. Neoprene adds a layer of water. If you put a layer of fleece in between your skin and that neoprene, I think that goes a long way. Like today, I could have put a fleece top on. That's what I usually do if it's hella cold. But, you know what I mean? We want to get a little cold today. Hell yeah. All right, hell yeah. So we're all dressed. And anytime that you do a put-in, you should ask yourself, am I warm enough? Can I just jump in? And today, hell yeah, I'm warm enough that I can jump in. Now, it's cold. I might be cold for the rest of the night, but and then the other question you should ask is, how long could I just sit in the water, constantly get my hands and head wet, just in a constant fashion before I'm like, hell no, let's get out. So I can say I do half hour. I think I'm just gonna say that as a benchmark. So you should always be thinking, if I had to just jump in right away and spend like half hour in the water, would it be okay? And I think that's the benchmark you want. Because if it's not, like a lot of rivers, like the Colorado, with street clothes, even in the 100-degree heat, it's 10 minutes before you get useless. And then you might die of being useless in a very cold river. You can't get to shore. You can't get out. All right, hell yeah. All right, let's do it. All right. Definitely feels colder than I thought. Oh, I hate this. All right. This feels good for whatever reason. Like, actually, the first thing I noticed is, like, do you want the cockpit up high? And yeah, that felt pretty good. We'll have to get the boat back because now it's all messed up. But all right, we'll have to get this thing actually strapped down because I really want to try this out. But initially, that felt good to have that rail under. So that'll be the first thing, just kind of paddle around with that rail. Yeah, this is getting bunched up where I kind of want it underneath, but I just don't think I can strap it underneath. But maybe we'll take it out. Well, let's play around with at least leaning as far out as possible. Oh, this is interesting because this is a sponson. Yeah, so this thing won't tip over. And this kind of has that design where it's double, you know what I mean? So I think for R1 design, anytime that you have an inflated surface, be asking yourself if you want it continuously smooth or broken, because now when these two things intercept, they're too independent. It's at least this wide compared to this being a completely round tube. Oh, that's so interesting because my boat is so tippy that I just can't get this thing to tip. So let's give her it. All right, so that's real interesting, and because I want this same effect like this to occur once the boat is upright. So I want it to be loose, but then the second I go into this position, and this is so crazy bomber. All right, I think we should get wet. We're dressed to get wet. So hell yeah. First thing we're gonna do, pull ourselves in. So yeah, and having a second bump out that's lower just gives you recovery, gives you a place to recover, and the knee, and it. But I mean, the boat paddles awful right now. It's okay to paddle out here, so that's interesting. I don't mind that at all. And making a platform would also allow you to have the seat all the way out here and not in low positions. But with a platform, you can even make that higher. And that's the other thing, even have a separation, even an air gap. You know, because if this is never touching the water, then you don't need any more inflated surface. All right, hell yeah. Let's film this sideways, because we can get this thing to bounce. Hell yeah. That's cool. And I like that, because this is the staggered design that I was thinking. It's just on steroids. I want this in a very compact boat where that's enough to really get it onto edge. You can get a stable position as well. All right, hell yeah, let's do this way. All right, let's test where the stability is. Almost need it. Oh, hell yeah. All right, so this is a little higher. Let's see how it pulled itself in. I'm gonna assume it'd be okay, but that's gonna shift. Hell yeah. And this is towards the back. This is where I want that. But let's all right, so what I found is once the torque of the boat passes the last point, you know, there's, unless you have another piece of stability to catch that, that's the point that's gonna roll. So even this is stable up till here, but the second it pivots, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, so once it pivots on there, we are getting those two tubes, so that it might be a flatter surface. So those tubes right there might be a flatter surface. But those two tubes right there is what I would like farther apart. I would like the boat to go up to here, but see how it feels too loose? Like right here, there's not a third point of stability. So in a smaller compact design, what I would like is these two tubes to engage. And I think these two tubes would be in the center. These two tubes are the ones that you want for your I-beam floor. And then maybe separated with a gap. We talked about having a drain gap. And then outside of that, so those two tubes would put the boat at an angle like this just naturally. So when you're normal paddling, you're paddling the boat just like this, with some feedback the other way. You know what I mean? The other part of the boat is trying to get it to go the other way. But hell yeah. But you do need that third point of stability, because this, once this is neutral, let's see. Yeah. Once it starts to roll, it's rolling. You know, you need another place to actually gain that stability. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because if that last point of stability is a sponson that engages like right here, but that does get in the way of paddling. Because if this is the new outside profile of the boat, yeah, and I'm thinking where this whole setup, this angle right here, would be underneath the boat. And that would be the first point of contact of V. So this design would be interesting to come back and see if I could just balance on that point where yeah, that's interesting. All right. fascinating thing is this is not too far out. So, like in my normal position, like this is wildly stable. This sponson could be wherever. Like even just thinking about it, this could be the last, like the last sponson. So I'm gonna try to jack this up and then play around with, I think people want to see this at the hip because else I'm just kind of wasting time. But yeah, we're done with this. We'll do a couple more rocks. It's cool feel. I just think once you pass that point, and it's really difficult. Yep. That's where you want all of that leverage. I don't know, like I'm thinking you want all this dynamic, like a really loose feel just by moving around the cockpit, dropping to edges. Like this is your last edge. This feels like a sponson. You know what I mean? Like that would be your, like, when I go dive my boat at an angle, then that sponson kind of is something to bite into the water. But other than that, having this rolly feel to a
I'm wondering if these are adding extra stability just because they're able to move or something. But this is really wild, and maybe it's just because you have a square box here. But... Okay, yeah, this is interesting. I think it's because you have a square edge. That's it. This is bizarring me out, like why this is just so stable. Is because I have foamed out, like I've taken the round shape and made it square, and it's now a bigger rectangle, and so the levered arm of that square, this point right there, is just wicked stable. And I feel like it's honestly most stable in this highest position, I think. But again, I don't know if it's because it's able to move. Yeah, I could get that to 10. Alright, so if I have a fin out here that I'm leveraging, the thing will tip over. But this big square, and part of this round tube, I think that's giving it a lot of stability. So this would be one of those stair steps. So this is your main tube, and this is your stair step, and this still could be out of the water quite a bit. And maybe I'm going to focus on that because now if I drop this in, the boat will rock up to its angle. And if currently this one isn't really needed, but this one could be out here as a place to place your hip. But yeah, hell yeah, so this does feel, so now this feels exactly kind of what you want. I think I still have the dynamics of my raft a little bit. I think you could get used to a hip thing like here. This feels good, you know what I mean? It feels like a cockpit chair. Just as long as I'm able to, you know, get where I want to be. Yeah, I'd say it feels pretty decent. It feels way better than this summer having stuff out here. But yes, you could have this much stuff around this area. And again, it doesn't have to be in the water at all. Alright, but again, this cockpit width is now just too big. You would definitely want it. I don't know, this doesn't have to be this big. But yeah, the width of the boat just got crazy wide. I don't know if there's any benefits to paddling up here. Alright, that's the first one that actually kind of felt good. It's even just to do like one simple thing. It's cold as hell, you know what I mean? But we were able to get this elevated just a little bit. And so now it kind of is off the water. My boat's tracking real well. And even over here, I think this thing is fairly out of the water. It's hard for me to tell, but it just feels, the boat feels loose. So, hang on. And I'm thinking more and more, for me, like R1 is like rotation. It's like being able to rotate and then lock that motion in. Like that to me is, I don't know, kind of like what you want. So you want to be able to rotate and then lock something in. And so that is interesting with this. I haven't locked this in yet, but here. That feels good. Yeah, so I think this concept works, where you have a boat that's rotationally very quick underfoot. You know, you can have a complete dish underfoot where you do have, like, it even feels unstable, like where you have stair steps back and then forward where you can kind of drop the boat in. That's really what I want to work on, is even at a lake to be able to like shift and then really feel this boat kind of dive like a playboat. But then you can have other tubes kind of catch the angle that you want, so that can set that angle. So when you're going in, you're like, oh yeah, I want my boat to be up at this angle. And so that really shows that underfoot, you can have a very turny boat. And then really set that. Yeah, finally this feels decent tonight. So I thought tonight was just going to be a wash, but this feels really good. And this tube does not have to be so far in. It can be flush with this. So that's what we're showing, is that this is the response, and I can have a vertical tube. You know what I mean? I don't mind this. This paddling isn't that bad. And paddling over. And that actually feels real stable when it engages. All right, hell yeah, now we're talking. All right, hell yeah. So that's pretty sweet. So now you have, I like that. This doesn't have to be this high, but with a, with a platform, what I want is to then foam out this. So I run a flat platform, which would be probably flush with this. This would be your sponson. You would have your edge right here. I do like that, but then foam this part out, where it's flush, and then you have foam out to here. Whether you're going to be all the way out here, because, and the foam can be just a little bit farther out, because if you're going through some rocks, the rocks can grind on that foam. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can get a couple inches more because it'll be foam. All right, hell yeah. I'm gonna reset the camera. But I like this leverage. This leverage feels great. It's still gonna tip when it tips. You know, there's no third stability point here. But what we've done is just sponsoned out. Like, this is your edge that if you want to engage it, you can. And it makes, yeah, that's fascinating. I'll have to think about it more in words. This opposite design also is probably more stable than having these things flared up, but yeah, that's not really useful for paddling. Yeah, I've never even thought of bracing, but if I'm gonna go into a wave, no hands, and I'm gonna punch it, then a high brace is way better than a low brace. Because a low brace, you're just putting the weight of your body. It's yeah. Where that high brace has just got so much more leverage. So yeah, so that's interesting. So if I was to duck dive a wave, yep, I'd have too much stability over this side. It's right over here. That's huge because now my body's not falling over the boat. My ankle's not getting twisted. Yeah, so this is sponsored stability. But like I said, I don't mind paddling over it. It's a little bit wonky. The boat's probably feeling slow from straps and stuff. Let's try to. But that is remarkably stable. Because what this also does is it's putting a point of no return on the boat that says, hey, you can brace up against this point as big as you want. So I'll have to play around with that. Because one thing is that this isn't angling that enough. I want a boat where if I do this, hop, that boat is out of the water at a high angle, but it's not tipping me over. And I think that's feasible, because that's just moving this just a little bit higher. God damn, my straps, man. Yeah, there you go. So, yep, so just adjusting this height. But that means that when this boat goes up, I mean, it becomes unstable. Like if half this boat is up, you need a flat spot. And so that's where I think my design of a V, because what's happening is when I do this, the V is right here. And where I want this transition is to be right in the center, because then that makes two boats. Where if I'm right here edging, the point of contact isn't right here. All right, hell yeah, last round. Not able to capture the footage I want to capture, but all right, hell yeah. So we have this up at a higher angle, and we can finally, we can finally high side into it, fairly effectively. But this is fascinating me, because what I was thinking with surf is you wanted to be able to lean up and have that other tube release. And I just don't know how much. And when you do that, having the spots in, hell yeah, because I can control that. But the second I go past this point, we are tipping, and so it is just stability out to whatever angle it engages. But that does set the angle, because I was trying to, get this a little higher. And then, yeah, because that's huge. If this is really close to the water line, then it'll build up, fairly stable. But if I'm able to rock it farther, it's definitely more tippy. And I think it could be comfortable to have this. We've talked about how it doesn't have to be all the way so far in. It can be out to this corner. Hell yeah. The only thing that's not natural, and we talked about putting a platform like this Sponson's in a great place. Having this and controlling where you want it on a round boat seems really a good idea. And then just controlling how high you want to be up. Having a platform, foaming it out, and I still think you could make grips on there so it's easy to get yourself in. It would almost be like a flat surface, so when you pull in, it feels like you're pulling yourself in onto a deck. That could be very helpful, just because the roundness of tubes, I think, is the detriment. So that's what I'm learning, I think, is that you do want, having something engage, your hip, having something engaged right here, all are good things. Yeah, kind of interesting. It puts a lot of material out though, so I don't know if you incorporate it into a smaller design. Just where my feet are, I don't need my feet to be as far out. I can have a smaller boat. This cockpit's too long and too wide. All right, hurry up. So we were talking about how the high brace is just the best. Did not want. I don't want to go in again. Hell no. Yeah, it's still tricky. Definitely, it's like I find bracing is more just getting yourself on the high side, moving your mass to the high side. Almost.